Hello observers. Sorry I won't be at a conference this year, like all of us, but there's no reason not to share our information. Over the past year I've been studying the problem of trying to explain how the Earth could change its rotation during a micronova. And I've come up with a couple of things. In fact, I visited a place in Florida that shows that these are recurring events. Okay, we're out here in Florida at Punta Gorda at Florida Shell, which is a shell mining company, and you can see the different strata in time of these huge washes of shells that washed up onto the ground from probably huge tsunamis after these big cataclysmic events. There is surely an unexplained phenomenon below the surface of the sea that has not been reasonably explained. All over the world, off of every coast, the topography of the continental shelves have huge vertical erosion characteristics that are identical to land-based mountain ranges and rock cut by waterfalls. Enormous erosional cuts into the side walls of the continental shelves and massive channels that end up with alluvial plains at the bottom of the ocean floor are exactly like the channels cut into mountains from rain and rivers on land that end up in alluvial deposits at the end of rivers. Assuming the undersea topography is from freshwater rivers, emptying into the oceans and cutting into the walls of the continental shelf as the rivers flow into the oceans, is a perfect example that the more assumptions you have to make, the more unlikely an explanation is correct. Not the least of which is ignoring the fact that salt water is denser than fresh water. Therefore, fresh water cannot physically descend below salt water to cut channels into anything. Clearly, the problem of explaining the ocean topography as the same as the land-based erosion topography is the problem of providing a reason that somehow the oceans have been emptied and another massive source of water is pouring over the ledge of the continental shelf into an empty ocean basin. As preposterous as that seems, there is a way, albeit briefly and repeatedly, that this might occur. A reasonable answer can be provided, but the explanation is complex because it involves the magnetic connection between the sun's magnetic field and the Earth's magnetic field. So follow along. It will take time to present the newest evidence to grasp their implications leading to the answer. Recently, it was discovered that deep inside the Earth around the magnetic iron and nickel of the core is a 1 to 10 kilometer thick electrically conductive ultra-low viscosity zone at the Earth's core to mantle boundary. 90% of the mantle's iron monoxide is concentrated at the lowest region of the mantle next to the core and has a dielectric capacitance. Electrical conductivity measurements in the iron +3 atoms found in the iron-containing magnesium aluminum silicate perovskite in the deep mantle show no drop in conductivity at that depth because the 330 gigapascals of pressure at that depth negates any Curie temperature effects. This opens up a completely new understanding of the Earth's magnetic field. The Earth's magnetic field can be explained by electromagnetic theory and a new theory of magnetism. Charles Proteus Steinmetz discovered that inductance in a coil is how well it can store electric energy in a magnetic field, like at the Earth's core. The power of the magnet is the current times the voltage. When voltage is reduced, the magnetic field is transformed back into a dielectric field. When voltage is increased, the dielectricity is transformed into a magnetic field. The Earth has a capacitance to store a large dielectric field needed to produce the enormous geomagnetic field. According to Michael Faraday, when a magnetic field like the Earth's core is pulled through a conductor like the low viscosity layer of iron monoxide at the mantle core interface, an electric current flows in the conductor, and that the current in the conductor will make a ring-shaped toroidal magnetic field with a flowing current. But where is the voltage to run this current coming from? At any given moment, the sun is pouring out highly charged plasma conducted outward along its magnetic field lines, the solar wind. Magnetic theory scientist Ken Wheeler, a student of Steinmetz, Faraday, and Nikola Tesla, has shown that all magnetic fields are a juxtaposition of two counter-rotating flows of inertial force created from a dielectric plane of inertia. There are no magnetic poles or attraction and repulsion, only pressure and counterpressure to and from the plane of inertia. There are centripetal vortex funnels at the top and bottom of the centrifugal magnetic field structure that in the case of the Earth naturally induct voltage towards the plane of inertia. He has clearly shown this phenomena to be evident in testing where a magnetic field is shown to have two counter-rotating commingled field flows flowing out of a region mid-center of the magnet in opposite directions as the combined dielectric inertial fields. One field flows back into one end of the magnet, and another flows into the opposite end of the magnet. A general magnetic field with two funnel-like cusps, where the auroras are directed, towards the plane of inertia. The entire geofield fills up with solar voltage. The magnetosphere multiscale spacecraft has identified that as solar-charged particles reach the Earth,
They fill the magnetosheath with a turbulent magnetic plasma that makes localized magnetic reconnections, not unlike the reconnections in the stretched lines in the anti-solar direction of the magnetic field, or the reconnections of magnetic lines in solar flares. These generate spikes of voltage into the geomagnetic field. Inside the field are Birkeland currents that can carry between 100,000 and 1,000,000 volts flowing along geomagnetic field lines, connecting the solar wind caught in the Earth's magnetosphere to the Earth's high-latitude ionosphere and funnel it into the polar regions, often seen as aurora. The Themis satellite revealed that power added to the magnetic field is 20 times higher than previously believed and traveling at nearly the speed of light. Mostly it is a constant flow of plasma that is trapped in our geomagnetic field. The Enlil spirals depict this flow of solar energy. This is the voltage to power the magnetic field. The Birkeland currents induct this energy from the field to the Earth in two pairs of field-aligned current sheets. One pair extends from noon through the dusk sector to the midnight sector, where it flows back to the geomagnetic field. The other pair extends from midnight through the dawn sector to the noon sector, total coverage over 24 hours non-stop. The sheets on the high-latitude side of the auroral zone is referred to as Region 1 current sheets, and the sheets on the lower latitude side is referred to as Region 2 current sheets. Voltage is constantly being inducted into the magnetic field in this way, but only recently understood. Mr. Wheeler's magnetic theory can therefore explain the coincidental locations of the Birkeland currents at the magnetic field poles in the voltage current induction. In this case, the dielectric field is at the center of the Earth. Because of this, the Earth's magnetic field has a dielectric capacitance that is maintained by the inductance of the Birkeland current into these magnetic structures. Solar charged particles caught in the geomagnetic field flow into the Birkeland current in the ionosphere and across the top of the Earth in the Pedersen current and leave the Earth back into the geomagnetic field. The voltage of the current after the interaction is less leaving than it is coming, because voltage is inducted into the Earth's core to maintain the magnetic field via the geomagnetic field centripetal vortex. This current of power is the key to both planetary geofield stability and rotation. The vortex spin of the centripetal field is the evidence that the dielectric plane of inertia rotates out of the dielectric. This rotating dielectric plane causes a rotating current flow in the magnetic toroid field of the Earth. This precession causes a torsional strain on the magnet or the mantle of the Earth, and the strain direction is transformed into rotation. As Steinmetz showed, when voltage is inducted, the geomagnetic flux is increased. Earth takes in just what it needs and rejects the rest to maintain the potential of the capacitance. According to electric theory, voltage is the electromotive force that causes a current to flow through a conductor having resistance. The conductor is the iron monoxide of the mantle. The resistance is the mantle rock. It is in this way the Earth's magnetic flux is under constant regeneration as voltage is inducted into the magnetic field in the core. As long as the sun pours out voltage, the Birkeland currents recharge the field. This trickle charge counteracts the frictional loss from rotation of the core inside the mantle, maintaining a stable rotational velocity, and provides the magnetic precessional torque and subsequent planetary rotation. Simply, the Earth is a freely floating object in the solar magnetic gravity field, under reduced external frictional loads, and rotation is the natural outcome of the precessional torque. 24-hour rotation, 27,000-year axis precession, like a gyroscope. The mantle layer that is being induced to create the magnetic toroid is physically connected to the Earth. The field current direction is induced in the mantle as a transfer of energy from the momentum of the dielectric plane of inertia in the core inside the mantle. The induced centrifugal motion of the ring current is transformed into planetary rotation by lack of external frictional load. And in any motor induced by an electric current to rotate, if the current is interrupted, the rotation stops. And if the current is reversed, the rotation is reversed. And if we look at Earth's magnetic dynamo as an electric motor, where the magnet is inside the rotor windings attached to the motor casing, our planet rotates as long as the current is applied. And like any motor, if the current is interrupted, the rotation stops. And if the sun's current is interrupted, internal friction defeats the induced field current momentum and the Earth stops rotating. And this simple insight provides the means for explaining a situation, if only briefly, after a long cycle of normal rotation, where the continental shelf is exposed for radical hydraulic action. When the solar voltage is interrupted, the Earth stops rotating, and the solar voltage can't stop if the sun has a solar nova event. When the voltage stops, Earth stops rotating, but the oceans don't stop moving, and neither does the atmosphere. They move east at 800 miles per hour. The Atlantic Ocean translocates east, emptying the Atlantic Basin as it moves over Africa and Europe. The Indian Ocean translocates over Australia. The Pacific Ocean translocates across South America into the Amazon basin and North America and pours over the continental shelves, transporting the shells from the Gulf of Mexico seafloor over the Florida Peninsula in vast shell deposits, then pouring over the exposed face of the eastern continental shelves into an empty Atlantic basin, carving and eroding the ledge.
So we found the pre-dynastic center here. It was clearly devastated by some kind of ancient cataclysm. We have rich deposits of calcium carbonate that likely came from the ocean, from flooding in from the ocean. And so the city itself is built over that way because in order to build here, they would have had, the dynastic people would have had to have cleared all the stone out of the area. Just everything is broken on a massive scale. And we also see evidence of this at other locations such as Karnak and the Ramesseum and other locations to the south. Every piece of stone at Tanis is broken, not through human intervention, but likely from a giant cataclysm in the very distant past.
On one morning 12,000 years ago, some of the now extinct animals of North America were attracted to the animals caught in the tar in the La Brea tar pit in what is now Los Angeles. Ancient equines, giant wolves, short-faced bears, saber-toothed tigers, woolly mammoths. These same ancient animals were also in Siberia, along with vast herds of mastodons roaming the length of the Siberian tundra when something in the sky caught their eye. 93 million miles away, the sun suddenly flashed at 1,000 times brighter than normal for over a minute. And all these ancient animals saw their world end instantly in a single violent moment as the sun went nova and sent out a dust shell at 1,550 miles per second that slammed into the earth for another cycle of renewal. "12,000 years later, we are uncovering the result of that last day. Scientists are finding broken animals all over the northern continents. Whole animals, but they're all shattered inside.
So my basic feeling on this is when these things happen, they don't happen exactly the same every time. There is a wide variety of how displaced things are, how slow the Earth gets, if it stops, if it reverses. There's a wide range of possible outcomes. One thing for certain is this planet could stop or slow its rotation. Anyway, I'll see you next year.